Find power elsewhere.
Yeah.
Oh,
You can't.
Depending on where you live in Nova Scotia, because there are some communities in Nova Scotia that actually generate their own power.
I've
Really?
heard about this.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Berwick is one of them?
I think so. It's a community in the valley, and I think Antigonish is another one.
That's cool.
Yeah, it is really
That's
cool.
really cool.
So it's a throwback from back when they actually did community-based power, and when Nova Scotia Power was being sold by the government at that point in time, because they were like, look at this big liability. Let's make some money off it. Look, we balanced the budget. It's like, yeah, but you screwed the future. But anyway, so they said no, and they kept their own generation. So there was also some really cool programs that were put in place. I forget which government did it, but it's called the COMFIT program. Mm-hmm. So it's basically, COMFIT is community feed-in tariff. And so it was like if you generated your own electricity from like a wind farm, you could sell that power back to Nova Scotia Power at a certain rate. So I think at that time it was like 12 or 14 cents a kilowatt hour.
Oh.
And so it actually made it feasible for communities to develop their own energy sustainability. To feed into the grid.
Because it was profitable.
It was
for the community.
It was probably a break-even situation, but over time,
right,
it would be profitable because eventually you'd pay off that initial investment.
And more than monetarily, you'd have your own power.
Right. And so those programs only lasted as long as the government had them last for, and if they weren't renewed. So then you have all these windmills, and then Nova Scotia Power says, hey, so we're going to buy back your energy now at 6 cents a kilowatt hour. And the community goes, well, we still have like 5 years left in our payment plan at this rate in order to pay these off. And they're like, well, that sucks for you, but we'll buy them from you. And so then they buy that wind farm from that community that's made the initial investment and put them in place. And then Nova Scotia Power gets the claim on their sheet. And they're like, look at all the natural resources that we're using to generate electricity. It's like our energy mix is looking so good right now. Like we've got all these wind farms up, and it's like, yeah, but you stole them from the COMFIT program.
Do you?
So, but yeah, so just interesting things that have happened in our past.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
Dang. Yeah, it kind of goes back into kind of how I feel in general, where you'll probably correct me on this, but I do get annoyed when we are the ones who essentially front a lot of the cost to say put solar panels in your house, but then you have to tie into the grid. And I'm just like, it just feels like Nova Scotia Power is just benefiting off of my money and what I'm investing and just using it.
They're a private company. Like that's what they're going to do. I mean, if they weren't doing that, they wouldn't be a good private company, right?
But it's not even that. It's like, I mean, it's just the issue of why do I have to tie into the grid? That's the problem. I'm okay if a private company says, please do it, then I'm fine. But I want to have the decision to do it or not.
I understand the reasoning behind it. And so the reasoning behind it is that if your energy grid that you put in place, or not grid, sorry, if your energy generating system that you've put in place in your home fails, what is the default there so that you don't either freeze to death or what have you, right? Or depending on the situation, who's connected to that, what's connected to that, it might be vital that you have electricity. I mean, I kind of view electricity now almost like running water, that you have to have it in your home. So the ruling, I think, would be put in place to benefit people in that sense. Like, I know you've got a lot of people who want to go off the grid and don't have that option. It's kind of really crappy in that way, that you can't claim that as your primary residence if you're not connected to the grid. I do understand where the thought process came from. The problem is that would be okay if you had a provincially run grid. We don't. We have a privately run grid. So it's hard, right? I mean, it's the same thing when you look at car insurance. It's like, I'm stuck paying this amount because it's, mandated that I have insurance, with a good thought in mind everybody should have insurance. But the problem is I have to go through a private company who then can charge me whatever they want to charge me.
Yes.
So it's the same thing.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of the issue that we're running into in general with, sort of related, but I thought it was interesting, obviously, what's happened with a lot of people having frozen pipes over the past weekend or so. And we're already backed up with insurance-based claims for fixes from Fiona.
Oh,
I have friends who had something that wasn't related to Fiona, but it happened a month before, who still haven't got people in to repair their house, and their whole house is gutted.
Yeah,
it's just I can only imagine how backed up people are going to be with insurance-based claims.
Well, what's interesting is I deal a lot with First On Site and like those sort of companies, like emergency restoration companies.
Yeah.
And when you ask them, they say, we're only taking commercial clients and there's a wait list for them. If you're residential, we cannot help you.
Yeah.
We are not coming.
I'm that's a whole other rabbit hole of like issue. That's like, you know, workers and training and like
because they only have so many resources.
Yeah,
of course.
exactly. So it's yeah, that to me just again speaks to the problem. Like they keep talking about the supply of housing. It's like, well, we can't build them fast enough, and it's like
We can't fix the broken ones.
yeah, we can't fix the broken ones. So yeah, I feel like that's a whole extra can of worms of just like, you know, we're not paying people enough. We're not training people fast enough. We're not making it easier for people to do these
To
things.
live where they work.
So yeah, so we have a backlog of houses that need to be built. We have a backlog of houses that need to be repaired, and we only have so many skilled people that can do that, or people, I should say, who can do that are certified to do that. Because that's the other side of it too, right? You might have people who have done this their entire life, but because they didn't do the 4-year college thing with an apprenticeship and a Red Seal, they can't actually do the work.
Yeah.
So is Canada broken?
Oh,
I had to drop it. I had to drop it.
Oh my goodness, is it broken? I think Canada's fragmented and fractured. I wouldn't say broken yet.
Okay.
So, because I think there's things that are working very well. I think there's things that are working not in our interests that are also working as intended.
Right.
But I also think that there's things that are just like things have spiraled and snowballed that we just don't have the capacity to deal with at the moment. So
Right.